There we go. I just wanted to make sure I was recording the session. Thank you actually for that reminder, Lori. Both sessions I've recorded the first session, and I will record this one and I will post it. I'll give you access to this. So, if there's anything that you missed, it might be useful going through this again. Of course, the system is made to be pretty simple, so hopefully just with a little bit of direction, you should be able to kind of get the feel of the system, but it still may be useful to go through the webinar. There's a lot of questions that will come up that I don't always know to answer, or everyone doesn't know to ask. So, okay, so any other questions or concerns before we get started?
No.
Okay, sounds good. I am going to mute. I'm just going to basically put it in lecture. So now you should be able to hear me, and I can't hear any questions currently. So feel free to definitely hold on to your questions, but feel free to use the chat to put any questions. I will not address any of them until we are at a breaking point. And again, I will do that. It will be fairly frequently. I'm only going to go through small pieces of the system before I ask questions. So we're ready to get started. So when you first log into the system, you will be presented with a similar type of screen. We kind of threw this up here now just to show everyone that you cannot access the system without having a login. And you will receive your logins. I think we'll talk about that at the end. The first thing I'm going to do is create a referral from scratch. So this is probably the most frequent thing that you will do in the system, and all I did is I clicked on Find Services, and when I go to Find Services, what I'm presented with is a couple different options. I have search bars, I have search criteria I can define on the left-hand side. There's a search field. I can select from a list of counties. Zip code will give me radius search depending on my radius. And I also have eligibility information I can type into my search field. So all this information, if I type it in, will further specify my search. For a more general search, you type in less information. You also have icons in the center of the screen that you can scroll. These are service categories, and you're seeing 6 of them. I can use the arrows to see the next set. And if I keep going, you'll notice that there's a lot of service categories in the system. So I'm going to start with typing part of the word transportation. I'm just going to type in trans to show you that you will see search results right away. And you could have also looked for the category transportation, and you could have found it that way. But first, I'm going to use the search results that we have provided. And let's say the client we are sitting with needs senior ride program. So it looks like Senior Services Inc. has a senior ride program. I will select that. And you notice that on the right side, what I have here is similar to an Amazon shopping cart. We're calling it, right now we're playing with the folder idea. So the Amazon shopping cart will always be populated with all the services that you add to it. You can leave the shopping cart. You can go to any other part of the system. You can log out. And when you come back, your shopping cart will be in the same place it is while you were last signed in. So I'm going to add a few of services to my shopping cart, or to my folder, I should say. So I added a transportation, and I want to add a tax service. We need tax aid, so I typed in tax. So Portage Senior Center has AARP tax aid program. So I'm going to select that service, and I noticed that there's also property tax payment assistance. My client also needs that service. So if you notice, now I have 3 services that I have selected, and I could leave the system and come back, and you'll see these 3 services are still here. But let me show you how one of these works. They also said they needed some in-home care. So they needed homemaker assistance. So I can go through the list and say Berry County has homemaker assistance. Region 3A has homemaker assistance. That's a little bit closer to them. and they meet the eligibility requirements that I can see right on the screen there. So I'm going to select that as a service. And now, so I have 4 services selected. So I have one for Senior Services, Inc., one for Portage Center, Community Action, and Region 3A. So that's good for now. Let me go and I'm going to complete this. I'm going to complete the referral. So all I've done so far is selected 4 services. I haven't completed the referral. I haven't submitted anything. So if I go to my folder, it should feel a lot like an Amazon shopping cart where you have your list, you have your selections up top, and to complete your order, you need to find a client. So it says there's a section down here for my client that's selected, and I don't have one selected. So I'm going to type in, what was the last name I was using last time? I think it was Snow. Let me try a different last name. Smith. So if the client is in the system, I can use my search fields, and I can just select him from the list. So I have Susan Smith. I added Susan Smith previously. So I see I typed in the last name of Smith, and Susan Smith popped up. So it depends on who the current client that you're sitting with is. If the client is not in the system, you should always first try and do a search. But if you notice that the client is not in the system, you can add the client right from the same page. There's another way that you can add the client that you probably would do before you start finding the services for them. But if you hadn't, you have an option of adding the client here. If I was to click this Add Client button, I would see a whole list of fields that is the client profile, and I can fill out those fields. There's some are required, and you can submit that, and then you're ready to keep going right from where we are here. But I'm going to show you how to add a client at a later point, so I won't go there right now. So I have Susan Smith selected, and you'll see before I can go on any further, before I can submit my referral, I have to click this button at the bottom. It says client has agreed to share data.
Scroll down a little bit.
I can't scroll them at the bottom.
Okay.
So if the client, so this is a verbal agreement that the agency staff must have with the client. We are working on getting some more specific wording from elder law. So I think we'll put in maybe 2 sentences there that it's very clear that if you get that understanding with the client, then you're okay. Because what's going to happen here is that client profile information that you filled in, and we'll see the client profile. It's not very deep, but you'll see the profile. It will be sent to these 4 agencies that I had selected above. These are the 4 agencies that I'm going to send. I'm basically creating 4 referrals right now in one swoop. So if I click this button, you'll see Submit Referral button is now active. Oops. I can select this button. So I'm going to select Submit Referral. Please wait. We're waiting. And the page is now refreshing. And it says Success. Your referrals have been submitted. And now this is a page that can be printed. And if I scroll to the bottom, I can look at I push the PDF. I can push the print button, and I'll get a PDF that you can save, or you can print and hand to your client. If they want the information, they want to be able to just go directly or call directly, or know who is expecting to call them, so you can print this page. And then, so this is the successful referral. So that's how easy it is to create and submit a referral. So what we did so far is we used this screen, the search and the category buttons to find 4 or 5 different services, and we attached a client onto that, and then we submitted the referral. So if there was someone using the system at those 4 agencies, they would immediately get a notification that a new referral has came in, and they can now complete some actions. They can accept the referral, they can do other things, and I'm going to go there next. But first, I am going to open it up for questions. So let me just open this up. Group mute. Okay, so we are ready to accept any questions that you have for this first section.
I have a question. This is Karen in Kalamazoo.
Hi, Karen.
I'm looking at this search, and one of the options you put in a zip code. Something about radius or whatever, and I know, so this client lives in Hastings, so whatever I would be looking for services there, but for example, myself at Disability Network as well as other agencies, I'm assuming our profile in here just has where our office is located, even though we provide services in 6 counties. So if you put in a zip code for that person, we wouldn't show up because our profile says our office address, because we don't have an address everywhere. So
That's a great
I'm
question.
trying to connect how this zip code would connect to match services that might be available for that person, but the agencies aren't necessarily located like that. I think there are many of us like this.
Sure, and that's a great question. So I kind of heard 2 questions there. How does the zip code radius search work, and also what does it search? Let me start with what the zip code will do. You're typing in, the zip code that you'll type in will be that client zip code, and the radius that you select is how far the client is willing to travel. So it defaults to 50 miles, but if the client is only able to travel 25 or 10 miles, then you'll only find services within that smaller radius. So the other part of your question is, specific to the services and the agency profile, you have both an address assigned to your agency, which does not power the logic behind the search. The services, I should say, each service has its own address that you can specify and its own contact information that we will get into next. But what that means is
has the counties that you serve with that service too, which is more important.
Correct.
But counties don't work for zip code. I mean, counties have a variety of zip codes.
But that's not Karen. The services, when we get to the service profile, what you'll see is that for each service, you could designate which counties you provide that service in. And so they will not. This search does not affect that. It really just refers to the client's zip code, not your own. And so if you're looking at the county search function on this page, that's really where, if you put in Berry County and if Disability Network provides the service in Berry County, then that you will show up in that search. That's the only place where that becomes an effect. I think once we see the services, you'll see what we mean. But the zip code here is the client zip, and maybe that's a point of clarification we need to make.
No, but I think the other point of her question was that, I think we answered it with each service will have its own address that you specify in the system. So, and we'll get into that. I'll show you what that looks like. Hopefully that'll paint a clearer picture. Does that make sense?
I guess once I see that, but I didn't fill in anything like that the way I did my profile. But okay, I will see how that looks.
Okay. Are there any other questions for creating a referral? Karen, the next section we're going to show you is the management of referral queue. So that's new referrals that come in and rejected referrals. But after that, we will go into the profiles. Okay? So we'll address your question right after that, and I'll show you specifically. Okay, so we are ready to move into the management of the referral queue. And again, I am going to put this into lecture mode, so you'll only be able to hear me, and I will not be able to hear you. Okay, so now I have completed a referral for my client, and I have some free time, and I want to go to my referral queue. Referral queue are the referrals that I have that I need to take action on. So when I go to my referral queue, immediately at the top of the page, I see some notifications, some alerts. The system is saying, hey, you have not updated your service profile. Maybe you need to, in the past 29 days, maybe there's some changes I need to go make to my service profile. And there's also a reminder for my agency profile. Now, we have set some thresholds in the system as to when these reminders pop up, and we're playing with them throughout the pilot to see what's a realistic thing. But there's a lot of different alerts that you'll see at the top of the screen, but those are probably the first places you want to go to look for actions that you need to take. And the very next is my return referrals, and I'm just going to scroll through this page to explain. So I see a couple of return referrals at the top. If I scroll down, the next section is new referrals, and you can see there's a handful of new referrals that have come in. And if I scroll further down, there's a table that shows my open referrals. And I'm going to explain all those in more detail. So let's start with the returned referrals at the top. So returned referrals are referrals that my agency has made on behalf of a client, and I've found a service in the system and sent it to a different agency, and they have rejected that. It was in this new referral section, and they did not accept. They clicked reject, and when they click reject, they select from a list of options, and they can type in some notes. So I'm not going to reject that referral. Instead, I'm going to take action on one of these returned referrals. So the current actions that I can take on a referral that comes back, so it looks like it's Christopher Lewis, and this is his information, and I made 2 referrals, and this is the referral, the service information I referred him to. If I click retry, what will happen is my shopping cart or my folder will automatically be populated with all the information as it was when I created that referral for that one agency. Now, it's possible with Christopher Lewis, I had 4 different referrals that I submitted at the same time, just like we did with Susan Smith a moment ago. This is just one of those agencies rejecting the service. So when I click retry, it'll put that one service back into my shopping cart along with the client information, and I can send it again to that same agency. Or, well, let's just do that. I'm going to click retry and show you what happens. So it's loading. It's loaded my shopping cart. This is the same shopping cart we saw earlier. It has the service that just rejected him, and then there's a client. So I can say, you know what, I don't want to send it back to the same service. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to find a different agency that has that same service. I'll perform the search again. You can type in the name of the agency to find other services that agency has, or I can find another similar service, and I could select it, and we could submit a referral again. But I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show you what that button did. So let me go back into my referral queue. So that's what the retry button does. It sets you up to resubmit or submit it differently. The close button the retry does not, if you notice, the retry did not close this out of my list. It's still in my queue. It's still the first thing in my queue. And that's on purpose, because the retry button doesn't assume that you're going to retry. You need to hit close and then select the action. So and there's options that I can select. I can say new referral has been submitted to a different agency, new referral submitted to the same agency, or referral was created by mistake, or other. And regardless of, and we're working on adding more actions. If you have feedback there, we're accepting all type of different close reasons for that. And you can also type in additional notes. And if I type in, I'm going to say new referral submitted to a different agency, and I'm just going to close it. And you'll notice that it will refresh the page, and then that return referral is now gone from the page. So now I'm going to move down to new referrals. So new referrals are referrals that are coming to me for the very first time. Now, if you noticed, I made a referral today for Susan Smith, and it shows referred on the 30th by Larissa. I am actually logged in as Larissa for demo purposes, and I am logged into Senior Services. That's the agency I'm logged into, and that's just for demo purposes. But so I referred Susan Smith to myself is what I just did, which is not really the most efficient way of use of the system, but it proves the point. I can see my new referral come in, and I can accept it, and my screen will refresh, and I can scroll back down, and now I have a different referral for Edward Jones that I can, let's say, this referral, I'm going to reject this one. This was referred a few days ago by Larissa, and I can reject it, and then there's a list of reject reasons, which are different than the close reasons. I can say that they don't meet the eligibility requirements, we don't have capacity for this service, it is not a service we offer, or other. If I select no capacity, what will happen is that service for my agency will automatically be set to being over capacity. And overcapacity is very important to keep your eye on, because when your service is over capacity, that service will not appear in search results until you say it is no longer over capacity. We'll talk more about that later, but this is one trigger that if I click that and I click submit, it'll say, okay, now your service is considered over capacity. You'll never show up in search results until you tell us otherwise, until you turn off that flag, basically. So I'm not going to select that one. Instead, I'm going to say they don't meet eligibility requirements, and I could type in a note. So the agency who created this referral will get this note and say, please review age eligibility requirements, or age requirements before submission. And then when that agency gets this referral back, they'll say, why was it rejected? Oh, it was rejected because they didn't meet eligibility requirements, and the note that Kia left me was for me to please review age requirements before submission. And I'm rejecting that one. So that'll go into their return referrals section. So that's how to manage new referrals. And accepted new referrals, so anyone that I accept will populate into this open referrals down at the bottom. So further down, I see a grid of open referrals, I should say. They're not new anymore. I've looked at them. I've decided I wanted to accept them. The latest one being Susan Smith, and the service was a senior ride program. The status is set to open. It was created by Larissa, which is in fact me, because I'm logged in as her. And I can open up this profile page to take more action or see more information on it. So I see all of Susan's information that's typed in her profile, which is not really complete, but it's over here on the left, and the referral information that they were referred to is on the right side. So this is my agency information, and I can change the status at the top. I can add notes. So in the status, I can say it's closed. It'll ask me to select closed reasons. And I can move further, and if I go further down, I can see the history of this current referral. So far, we've only accepted the referral. So I'm going to cancel out of that and go back to the referral queue and just kind of show you an overview of everything we talked about. We talked about what the rejected referrals are, how to take action on them. You can retry or close. There's actions with each. We talked about new referrals, how to accept or reject new referrals, and the implications of a rejection with overcapacity setting. And once they are accepted, they go into your open, and how you can take action on them beyond that. And again, I think maybe one thing I didn't talk about is how open referrals, this table will only show you open referrals that you have yet to take an action on. Once you go into the details for the open referral and close it, meaning you've performed the service or you were unable to perform the service, you can close the referral and they will not show up in this grid. So when you don't have anything left to do, this page would be empty. But right now there's plenty for me to do. I have a lot of rejected referrals, new referrals, and open referrals for me to take action on. So I'm going to open it back up for questions on this section. Give me 1 second. Okay, so do we have any questions so far on the management of referrals?
This is Karen again. I always have questions. Larissa knows that. I'm wondering about this overcapacity and waiting lists. I know a lot of us keep waiting lists. We like to know who would be on a waiting list. So if I'm overcapacity and then I'm taken off the search, I have no way to keep people that when all of a sudden I'm ready to go to my waiting list, new people would get to access that versus those people who previously contacted me. And I know we have a program we keep people, I keep their information to know as a waiting list, and I think other agencies similarly. So it feels like this is a little all or nothing, or I'm not quite sure how to manage that.
You're absolutely right. In the last webinar we had, that was the first time we had heard about it. So we're working to solve that. So we've already had a discussion with Elder Law, and they love the idea. So we're talking, and we may want to connect back with you after this webinar and just run some ideas past you to see if you think it would work. We have some solutions for it going forward. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but there is currently in the system, there's no functionality for waiting lists, but that can change very soon. And we've already started to come up with some ideas. So that's awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. It shows the importance of it.
Yeah. And Karen, so a couple things, not just only in response to that question, but in other questions that might come up. We're essentially always in conversation with Elder Law of Michigan and 3A and 3B to either try to bring it into resolve those kind of questions similar to the waiting list. There's other issues that we could incorporate into the pilot. Some will be, we'll find some kind of protocol that maybe resolves it without it being a technological solution, and some will just have to wait for a second generation. I don't think waiting list is going to be one of those, but that's generally as these different issues come up, we're trying to either resolve it technologically if it doesn't slow things down, find some kind of other protocol that maybe will help us just kind of work around it, and that would be, maybe we'll do it in notes. Or thirdly, it might be resolved in the second generation. Just so everybody knows, that's how we're taking everybody's suggestions into consideration. But all of them will be considered, and some will come to the top of the heap. And because we can technologically address them, we will. And if not, we'll try to figure out a protocol. So thanks, Karen.
This is Megan Reynolds from Legal Services. I would say as a pre-fix suggestion, for my agency, I would probably just not reject based on being over capacity, but keep my own waiting list, accept and maybe send a note back that I'm accepting it, but it'll be and I'll be in touch with the client that I'll be putting that person on a waiting list, because otherwise you would potentially shut yourself off from getting future referrals.
Yeah, that's one of I think that I heard you correctly. It's a little muffled, Megan, but I think what I heard is that you said you would accept the referral, and then inform the client that they were going on a waiting list. And I think that's one of the protocols we're looking at. But I think that there's also an interest as part of this project, just because waiting lists are a very powerful thing for advocacy and legislators, to somehow track waiting lists as well. I think all of you have known that the area agencies on aging have been really successful legislators on waitlist issues, and have motivated them to increase funding to kind of decrease waiting lists. So we're trying to figure that out. But you're right, Megan. I think it could be that we accept, but then notify the client they're on a waiting list. Is that what you said? Hopefully that's what you said.
Yeah, I just said for me, I would. Understanding what the capacity is right now it wouldn't be worth it to me to turn off referrals if what I was trying to say was that essentially I'm putting them on a waiting list.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the idea where it'll be a separate, I think we're thinking of adding a separate threshold to say, to automatically notify the agency who created the referral and say, hey, just so you know, that client went on the agency's waiting list. So that way they can notify the client right away, and they say, you're on the waiting list, so it's going to take a little bit longer before you hear a reply. Would you like me to create a different referral or to pull back that referral or something like that, to where the system would be intuitive, and we can still help the clients if they need help right away versus if they're okay waiting. So something like that. But yeah, we're talking with Elder Law to come up with a rapid solution to that. Okay, any other questions on the referral submission? We created a referral, new referrals, rejected referrals. Any questions there? You're going to be managing your referral queue almost as frequently as you will be making referrals. So this is how you get more clients using the system. So this is important to understand. Okay, it's a good sign. It means that we've made the system very easy to use, I hope. Okay, so the next section is going to be I'm going to address a question from earlier and talk about the admin pages, how all the data is managed by your agency and how it affects the other agencies using the system and how it affects the search criteria.
this is an opportunity for me to just remind you all that there was some information that was sent through both about your agency generally and then about your services. So we used that information and we're still using it to kind of fill out the information that we're going to be looking at right now. So I just want to highlight to you that although we created it as a starting point for you, there will be a transfer of ownership. You'll all be responsible for your agency and service profiles. So this is something that you will be managing as well, but there is a starting point for you all, and Kia's going to show you.
Sure. So if right now I think I'm logged into Senior Services. So if Senior Services, if you're here, maybe you identify things right away that we need to change. But once you get ownership, that's when you can make all those changes. Okay, so I'm going to mute everyone again. I'm going to go into lecture mode, so you'll be. Okay, so now I have created referrals using the search. I found services using the search. I have used my folder to submit referrals. I have went to my referral queue. So next thing I'm going to do is the fourth button over, which is the admin button. And you notice that it's a drop down and there's a couple different pages underneath each one. So I'm going to start with agency info. When I go to agency info, I see my agency name is Senior Services Incorporated. That will show up on every service that is on the search page and referred. This is where the agency name that is displayed. The address, this address is not specific to my services. This is just address of either, of your main office. This is basically if elder law needs to contact you, this is who they would call, or this is the address that they would go to, and this is the phone number they would call. This should be a front desk phone number. If you notice, there's not a particular person. So there's people that are assigned to services that is different from this page. This is strictly agency information. So this is the address and URL. Contact info. There's a contact info. I'm sorry, I lied. There's a contact information you can assign. So that means that if you want to call a particular person, then this is the contact person, but it is not required here. And you notice that the asterisks right next to the field name are required pieces of information, and primary contact is not. Agency status is. However, it's kind of redundant because you can't select anything other than active or inactive. What it means to be inactive is kind of a higher level of overcapacity. When you're inactive, that means you are no longer participating and you cannot receive referrals. None of your services will show up in search criteria. And that's across all services. It's different from overcapacity, whereas overcapacity only is for that particular service. This is for across your whole agency. At any time, any one of your staff members can come in, can log into the system and change your status back to active. This doesn't turn off your access to the system. It just turns off your participation in the program. Okay, and there's more address information, county information, and you can add a logo if you have an agency logo. So that's your agency profile. So if I go to clients, I'm not going to do this in order because this is how you add and manage clients in the system. I'm not going to go there yet. I'm going to go right from agency info to staff. So on the staff page, this is all the staff that I have in my agency. The staff members can access the system, but they are not required to. So this can cause a little bit of confusion. You have to have a staff member in the system if you are to assign them to a service. So if Senior Services has a Senior Rides program, and the primary contact for the Senior Rides program is Toric Brown, but he doesn't want to be a user of the system, he still has to be on this page. And when he is added to this page, he will automatically be emailed an invitation to activate his login and use the system, but he does not have to. He is not required to use the system, but he does need to be here in order to receive phone calls. And it would make sense for him to log in and see who is being referred to his services, but anybody at his agency can receive services. for that service, if that makes sense. So, and that's what we're kind of the rules we're playing with for the pilot. That is expected to change after the pilot, but during the pilot, it's anticipated that you're not required to use the system, and anyone at your agency can manage all services that have been sent to your agency. So Torek Brown is added, and Larissa, because I'm logged in as her, is in here. I don't think Larissa is assigned to any services, but when I go to this next page, I'll show you. But for now, I can add a new staff member just as easily as by clicking this Add button. And what I'll be presented with is a couple basic fields of information: their primary phone number, the phone number type, the secondary phone number type. This is if you want to contact this person. If they are the primary contact for a service, these are the phone numbers that will show up in the search engine, in the search criteria. So I would type in, if I wanted to make myself a new user under senior services, I would type in my name. The email address must be unique. It will not let you enter an email address that is already in the system or being used by a different staff member. So I can type in my email address in here, but this is overkill. This is a pretty simple form. I think everyone understands it. So I'm going to go back to my staff just to show you again. We have two members here. So when I'm going to the next page, which is my service page, I can only assign primary contact to Larissa or Torek. So let me go to my service page. So my service page shows me that I have over 8 pages of services, and I can select, I can see 5 at a time, I can see 10 at a time, I can open it up to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to keep it at 5. So you'll notice that each service is its own record, and each record has its own primary contact. So for all the services in the system currently, it's Torek. So I can click the name, I can click these arrows to sort, and I'm not going to have any sort ability because those are the same name, but I can sort alphabetically by address or service category or service type. And I can remove the service from our offerings by clicking this X right here. Ideally, if your service is over capacity or you want to turn off your service, I would recommend you change your over capacity setting rather than deleting the service altogether. If the service is flat out wrong and you don't provide that service, that's when you would delete it. But that's the delete functionality. Is if I click it, it'll ask me, are you sure you want to delete? It won't just delete, and then you have to make the final decision.
I just want to say that for those of you who are checking for accuracy, Senior Services their site has not been edited in accordance with what they submitted. So if you're seeing services listed there for them, we're just keeping it there for the demo purposes right now, so don't worry about that.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so let me show you how to go deeper into each service if I want to edit the service. So I can add a new service at the bottom by clicking the Add Service button, or I can edit this service by clicking this link to the tax aid program site. So I'm going to click that, and it'll load into the service profile. And so information on the service profile is what will show up on the search criteria. So when a zip code is typed, it will check against this zip code, which is specific to this service, and not the agency zip code. So you can have a different zip code across every one of your services, and they can all be different from the agency zip code.
Yeah, and Karen, I think, can you unmute for a second?
No.
Okay, you can.
I can.
We'll unmute momentarily, but you also can, the service county allows for multiple counties to be part of the service area.
Yeah.
So there might be some challenges if they kind of contradict one another. So I need to talk to Kia a little bit about that, because I could see the conflict between the zip code for the service.
Sure.
And the county, yeah.
So we'll talk about that after.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
So the service details page, this is the same page that if I'm adding a service, so you'll see that there's an address, there's different fields for the location, and here's the primary contact at the bottom of the left-hand side, and it is required here. So when you're creating the service for the first time, it'll force you to select one of your staff members. If you notice at this point that you don't have the staff, the primary contact staff member in the system, what you'll have to do is either leave this page and add your staff member, or select a different staff member and then come back and edit this page. So you can, under the admin, you can add a staff very easily, go directly there, but it will leave this page. So if you're halfway done, you might as well complete it with a different staff member and then just make a note to come back and fix it. But that staff member's contact information will be displayed. And a lot of times what we're hearing, and it is to be expected, that a client will, or a different agency will not go through and complete the whole referral process. They'll see the phone number and they'll make the call right away. So you want that contact information to be accurate and to be someone who's going to be able to answer the phones, of course. So right now it's toric. I'm going to leave it there. Service description is additional information that is not on this form that will show up in search criteria. So if there's anything else that I wanted to add, I'm sorry about that, my PC. Can you grab my charger? That's my laptop is dying. Anyway, I'm working on getting a charger. Anyway, this is the service description, again, will display on the search criteria. Any additional information that is not on the screen that you want to display about your service when an agency is making that referral, that's where you would type it. On the right side, you select the category. Depending on your category, you have different service types that are affiliated with that category. So if I change the category out to health and wellness, I wouldn't see the tax aid program in there. I would see other programs. And each service type, and this is getting, I'm sorry, one second. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is each service category and each service type combination has a set of keywords and hotkeys that are associated with it that you will not see, that we are adding to as the system is used. It's kind of learning what you type in, and we're making the system more basically smarter, so it knows how to provide you with the service you're looking for. So again, Larissa mentioned how service counties work. It's the counties that your service that serve clients, serve residents to. So I can select multiple counties here, and I can deselect them. I think Kalamazoo was the one that was selected, so I'm going to keep that there. Overcapacity, this is that same setting. I can change it to yes, we are over capacity, meaning we will not show up in search criteria anymore, or no, we are no longer over capacity, we can receive. And this is, again, the waiting list. I think we might add it here to have a separate item line for waiting list, which would have its own behaviors. Eligibility status is specific to the client. If you have to be a veteran, if eligibility veteran status is selected to yes, that means clients who are added to the system and their veteran status is a no cannot be referred to your service. And also, if they're searching for the no versus a yes, that's how the search works too. It is dependent on that. We have two pieces of eligibility logic in the system other than your location, and that's your veteran status and your age. I guess, we got some feedback to make those fields a little bit more clear as what they do, so we'll add that on there. But basically, if your client doesn't meet the age requirements or veteran requirements, then they cannot be referred to your service. Those information also will be populated on the search page. You may have not noticed it, but I'll show you when we go back there in the next section. Eligibility notes is more eligibility information that we don't capture here that your agency may have, and that's kind of where you would type it in, and there's no logic in there. The system won't force any of that, but it will be displayed to the staff member creating the referral. They can see right up front, oh, you have to be, handicapped or something to be able to apply for this service. So that's the service details page. So far we've looked at the agency profile, staff profile, and service profile. And I think we handled some questions that came up here, and we can come back to that. But before I open it up for questions, there's one more thing I want to show you, and that is the clients, which is under the same tab. I can go to my clients. For pilot purposes, we've talked about this before, so if you're in on that conversation, you may have a question here. For pilot purposes, we have made the client list available to all agencies in the pilot. Meaning if a different agency creates 5 clients and refers them to 5 other agencies that are not mine, I will still be able to go to my client list and find that client. This will reduce duplicate effort, and it's subject to change. We've been kind of tossing around the idea of only showing you clients who you have touched in some way, and I think for the pilot it was too much logic to put in, and we're just trying to maybe stabilize and see how the system's going to be used before we make that decision. So for now, you can see all clients in the system. If I look through here, I can see, I can find Susan Smith. I think that was the one we added last webinar, and I think we also added John Snow last webinar. So I can click on their name and then go into their client details, their client profile, and you see it looks very similar to the other profile pages we were at earlier. You type in you have some required fields. Their name and birthday, county are required. Everything else is not required, but is nice to have, like their address, their eligibility, veteran status, their household size, household income. If I scroll further down, I can see the total client referral history. This is all the services that this client has been referred to. I can click on one of their services that they were referred to and see even more history on what the current status. I see the current status, but if I want to see that whole chain of what was happening, what happened with this housekeeping assistant, I can click it. I can see all the notes that were added and so forth. It's a little bit deep. I don't want to go that far. You would want to do this for your clients if they come to you and they say, well, I don't know whatever happened with my housekeeping assistants. This is where you can find where it started and where it ended, and you see all that information. So if I go back to just my client page, I just want to point out that you can click this Add New button, and this is how you add a new client to the system, and it's a very similar form as before, and just these are blank fields now. I would have to type them in and click Save, and now I've added a client to my list. I'm not going to go through all those fields. So far we've talked about all the admin pages. I'm going to go back to my services because I think that's where we're going to have the most questions on. And I am going to open it up now for questioning if we have any. So do we have any questions on the administrative pages?
Hi, this is Martha with Guardian. I do have a question back on the agency status where it was active or inactive. If you select inactive, is there a secondary pop-up screen that warns you that by selecting it, what will happen?
Let's find out. I think you said on the agency. Yeah, on the agency, if you select inactive and click Save, it does not. But there definitely should be. So thanks for pointing that out. We'll add that. It should definitely pop up and say, hey, if you're inactive, this is what happens. All that logic that I explained. Thanks for pointing that out.
This is Bonnie.
Okay. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. Under services, when we were talking about the zip codes and the counties, would there be a way to, instead of just putting one zip code in, if you could put multiple, or else make it an either or, like a, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
What do you mean by having, what would 2 zip codes mean?
Multiple service areas, right, Bonnie? Is that what
right, like if you served 49001, 49007, 49004, could you put multiple zip codes in? Just like you can put in multiple counties.
So you're thinking it would be the same service with the same contact information, just different among different zip codes?
Right. If we serve all of Calhoun or Calhoun and Berry, we could put in several zip codes.
Okay.
Even there's for Berry and Calhoun, there are shared zip codes. Like 49017 is both Berry and Calhoun County.
Okay, that makes sense. I think currently the zip code is related to the location of the address or the location providing the service. So I think you presented another another type of criteria, kind of how we have service counties. I think we need to add a service zip codes. So we can add that to the list and just discuss that.
It also could be possible that we have multiple service addresses that can be checked off a box. So it's not just the zip. It really might need to be the service location.
If there's a different service location, that's a different question. If there's a different service location, currently you have to add them as a different line item. You'll have to add a new service with that separate location.
Oh, okay.
But for service areas in the same location, basically service areas that they provide a service in, that's maybe a different piece of logic that we could add.
Let me go back to Karen. Karen, do you provide the service in multiple locations, or is it that you provide the service to multiple counties?
Multiple counties, because we're not agency-based. We're out in people's homes and in the community and all over. So okay. It's the counties, and that's why I'm concerned about that response he gave of, if we listed all the zip codes, like for this project right now, it's 3 counties, but if it goes bigger in that, to try to list every zip code, that just seems pretty cumbersome to list all the zip codes that we serve versus listing counties.
And really, the
county either
is more
or.
effective. County is the better filter.
County seems way better.
Let's talk offline. But I think it presents an interesting dilemma. And Bonnie, Karen, and Kia and I will have a conversation offline on that. But thank you for bringing that up. I think that brings up an interesting point.
Martha with Guardian is that same category.
Okay. Where you're serving multiple counties, but not from multiple service areas, right?
Yes.
Not multiple offices.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. That's
Kia, so this is Karen again. My question is, I'm a little confused on that client. I must have missed something. The client and the admin drop down where you put the client in, and then these referrals are going all around. And did I miss that there's not a phone number? I mean, how am I contacting this person if their client contact information is a name and an address and a birth date? And I didn't see on the profile, I see no phone number. I don't understand how I manage this. I'm sending people letters or what?
Wow. The phone number must have just been dropped. I am so sorry. It was here.
Well, down below, even in the history, when I get that referral, to me it showed up a name and an address, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing with it.
You're absolutely right. There is definitely a phone number associated with the client.
Okay.
Like
I'd rather have a phone
number.
We have plenty of homeless people that address is useless.
Of course. And we have the phone number. I don't know why it's missing from this page. We must have updated the wrong page. It's definitely there, and it will be there when you are.
Okay, all right, I believe it. And my other question is, under admin, can any staff make any of those changes to services or the agency information, or is there, like, in some agencies, ours is one, but we're not that big. I'm thinking DHS, some of these big agencies. Every staff could go in at any time and change service information or agency information or their own staff information. I mean, the admin section is open to anybody, right? Like anybody could go change things, and I wouldn't know, or who wouldn't know, or.
Correct. It is currently, for the pilot, we have only one permission setting. Basically, admin is everyone's setting. Okay. But after the pilot, or maybe even a few months into the pilot, I don't know, 3 months, but I think maybe a month in, we may add, if it becomes a concern, we've already talked about it, that we would add, the other permission types where they would not have the ability to, we just haven't talked about what they all are, but currently everyone's an admin. Currently, yes, everyone can edit all the information in the system, but that won't be the case outside the pilot.
Yeah, I just wonder, it's just hard to keep track or control on what's happening and go, hey, how did that get changed or whatever, and it just can get confusing.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd have to have a login and a password for that to be able to do it. So there would be a record of who changed it, I assume.
Oh,
but opening, you can probably make restrictions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and in systems like this, you do have restrictions where you would only have a few people able to do certain things, and services are specific to a contact, and maybe you restrict even the service information to a few people, and all those things are important to have, but that's not the most important part of the system. That's kind of the logistics of how things work and the back end. The most important part is how staff members are going to use their referrals and manage their referrals. So that's where we're trying to learn the most, and that's why we have it open right now, and we will lock that down when it comes time. Of course. Do we have any other questions or concerns with any of these admin pages? Anything that I skipped? Anything that you're not sure of? Any phone number fields that are missing? Obvious fields. Okay. Like I said, we are in beta, which gives us the ability to make rapid changes. So we'll be able to add the phone number fields, and I think there's a few other things here that we're going to add, but they're minor things. It won't change your use of the system. Only minor intuitive pieces that we'll add here and there. And as that happens, maybe you'll see things that are easier to use. But at any time we accept feedback. So I have one more section I want to go over, and then we're done with the webinar. And if you've stuck with me so far, we only have a little bit left to cover. Really appreciate it, you staying through the rest. But sounded like Larissa had something she wanted to add.
Yeah. Also, we're looking to add a feedback button to each of the pages. So as the pilot progresses, you'll be able to click on the feedback button and provide feedback, capturing whatever issue you're seeing right at that moment. So just want to highlight that as well.
Sure. Yeah. And we also, I think Larissa, if you have her email address, you can send feedback through the system, or we'll also provide you a format to connect with us for feedback if you don't have access, or if you get locked out or anything like that. Okay, so if there's no further questions here, I will open it up again one more time at the end, but I'm going to show you how to create a referral again and kind of maybe point out some things that we didn't have. Actually, I am not going to mute it this time, so if you have any questions, it can be interactive. Please just stop me at any time. So I'm going to find a service again, and we're not muted. So I'm going back to the service page. This is what we did at the very beginning. If you remember, in the referral queue, when I was in the referral queue, I clicked retry. So I automatically populated my folder with a service and a person. So let me go into my folder and wipe it out. So I have Christopher Lewis, and I have this personal care. I'm going to wipe those out. Yes, please leave. I want to be all cleared out. So there we go. We don't have anything selected. So it's basically like when you were looking at that chair on Amazon and you didn't want it, and you have to go and delete it out of your shopping cart. So I'm back to my Find Services, and I want to type in, let's find the financial services. And where are my financial services? Oh, they're in I already passed them. It should be on the first page. Financial. There we go. I missed it. And I'm going to go to AARP Tax Aid Program. And I do this because I thought there was one, maybe it's under credit counseling? Oh no, I'm sorry, it was under home care. So, okay, let's go to Tax Aid Program, and you can see that there's an address associated with it, and there's a contact person and a contact phone number. So I can stop right here and call Kim Phillips at Portage Senior Center and ask her some questions about my client before I refer the information over, or I can go to Senior Services and call Toric, because there isn't enough information on this page for me to perform some action. Or I can add it to my shopping cart and say I'm going to just send this client information over there. They'll get that client information, and they can decide how they want to handle that. So I'm also going to go over to In-Home Services and Homemaker Assistance. I think this is the one with eligibility information. Yes, here we go. So here's the description of the service. So this is just basically why I just remembered that this was one of the services that we added to the system where we utilized some of the additional qualifications and the service description. If you notice, the top one under Berry County just has the address and the contact person, but the Region 3A Area Agency on Aging makes use of the additional fields like the description. You can write a description in here about what the service is and more information about the qualifiers. So they said age 60 plus and residing in Kalamazoo County. They've obviously utilized their eligibility fields, and the age is, they have, they added this additional comment. So that is another piece of logic. And now I've added them to my shopping cart, or my folder, I should say. And let me add just one more. And the fourth. So I have 4 items in my selection. And let me show you what happens when I leave the page. And what I'm going to do is click on the benefits screening. What happens here is it's going to take me to something that we didn't do the first time around. It'll take me through the benefits screening portion of the tool. And this is kind of a deeper screening of all the benefits that the client can apply for. These are government aid type benefits. And I'm not going to take you through the whole process, but I selected one of the options, and I see a deeper benefit screening. Because I don't have a client selected, it's asking me all the client information, and it's going to, there's pages and pages. I think there's 3 pages total, and each page has only a few questions on there, and depending on how you answer those questions, you are presented with a set of government websites and forms that client the client qualifies. So you can you don't refer them, but you can help them fill out those forms on behalf of the client, and you can go a little bit further that way. But I won't go down that path. I'm going to go back to my services, and you'll notice that my selection that I made previously is still here. And also, if I go into my folder, selection is in my folder, and I don't have a client. And again, if I click Add Client, it's showing me that Add Client page right here. And there's also no phone number here. Well, the phone number will be here, among other. Looks like there's one other thing missing. Or I can type in search. So if I type in Snow, I know one of my clients has a last name Snow that we added. And if I click John, then I can move further and say client has agreed to share data. And now I submitted those 4 more referrals unless there was some eligibility issue, which doesn't look like there was. Success, your referrals have been submitted, and it shows me a snapshot of what I did. Those are my 4 referrals. I can go back to the new referral screen, or I can print a PDF from here if I want to hand something to my client. Proof of, or in contact information, all that stuff will print out. If my client wants to go directly there, or if they want to call them, or if they want a list of everything that was shared with them, then you can print the print button. Oops. Why is that happening? Why can't I click? Okay, so that is submitting a referral again. So far today we submitted a referral. We submitted, I think, 10 referrals, something like that. I showed you how to manage your referral queue, what happens when you receive and reject referrals. We got some really good feedback about the admin pages and some of the logic behind the system. Is there anything else that we didn't show you or you have any questions on?
Did you unmute them?
Nope, everyone is unmuted. We were not muted for this session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This concludes our training. So now is the time to ask any other open-ended issues or questions that you had. If you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining me. We, again, will post...
Is there anything posted on here, too?
Nope, there's no questions. So we'll also post these webinars. And Larissa, did you want to give them some information as to when they can expect their logins?
Yep, we're going to be working to get logins out for Monday after the 4th of July holiday. It's July 7th. Our intention is to I believe that most of you will be engaging some additional staff in this referral network. You can, we leave it to your discretion about if you engage every direct service provider or whether you keep it to a small, discrete group, just so that you are making a judgment about that individual direct service provider's caseload, ability to, and time to provide feedback, etc. So we leave it to your discretion. The way we're going to handle logins is provide it to the direct contact that we have and that we've developed over the past couple months at your agency. And then we will also provide a guide which not only shows you how to use the system, but how to create additional logins for the staff that you want using the system. So the logins will be provided for the direct contact along with the guide, and additional logins for your organization, if needed, would be created on your end. It's an automated system that helps you create the login. So that's just kind of it. We're looking for Monday to be our launch. We're working behind the scenes. The system might look a little more colorful. We're, as Kia calls it, and we're working on a little bit of a facelift, and we're populating the services profiles with the information that you provided to Bonnie and myself. And, well, we look forward to getting this started on Monday.
Yep, and if there's any other questions in the meantime, please connect with us, Larissa or myself, and hopefully we'll be able to address them. Otherwise, you'll be able to, again, send feedback directly in the system, or you can connect with us after you're using the system if you have any questions then. We're always here to support you during this pilot phase, of course. Thank you again for everyone's time today, and I think there's one other webinar that we're thinking of, kind of, if there's anyone who, we'll do it after the launch, but we'll send out another note if there's anything in addition that you'll want to discuss. It's tentatively being planned for after the launch date. So for now, the next thing that's going to happen for the ELM system is a launch on Monday. And thank you again for joining us. Thanks for your time today. I'm going to shut down the webinar unless there's any other questions. I'll leave it open for a few minutes before I shut down.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care. I just want to leave. Just to make sure there's no one else who wants to talk about anything. There was a kind of a bigger crowd today than last time.
I want to see who, because we didn't ask for everybody's names. Can we pull that up?
I can pull that.
Because I'm going to go back and follow up with the folks who weren't able to make it.
Sure.
And then I need to get the link for the recordings for both.
Can do.
Did we hang up?
We're not hung up on purpose. Leave it. Just in case we still have 8 participants left in here. Maybe, I think one of them is you, Larissa. Can I disconnect you? Are you sure you want to? I can boot you out of? Yes. Just booted Larissa. So there's 7 more, and I think 1 is us. Maybe everyone is just inactive. Okay, I think that's it for questions. I am off